Here at Jones Insurance, your full-service agency, let us take care of all your insurance needs. We provide homeowners insurance, flood, rental, commercial, auto, and life insurance. Don't let the unexpected tragedy destroy your family's future. Here at Jones Insurance, 7603 West Bank Expressway, Monroe, Louisiana, 772. Contact Lois at 504-348-1492.
Hi, I'm Sheriff Joe Lapinto, and you are watching the New Orleans Talk Network.
During times of family stress, if you need a church to hold your funeral services or a hall to hold your repast, you can contact us at Bethesda Community Event Center at 504-348-0132. We can accommodate all your repast and funeral needs, from a preacher to perform the services, to an organist that plays the music, the ability to stream it live for those who can't make it, and more. During your time of need, all of your arrangements can be made under one roof here at Bethesda Community Event Center. We're here to serve you. Give us a call when you're in need at 504-348-0132. Give your loved one a great homegoing event. Come second line at our center.
This is Congressman Cedric Richmond, and you're watching the New Orleans Talk Network.
It's your girl, Dejana Nee.
And it's your girl, Nostalgia K. And New Orleans Talk Network is bringing you something brand new. We are bridging the gap. This is a place of hope, healing, and transformation.
And our podcast stands on Isaiah 58. We are rebuilding what has been broken and restoring strong foundations, one conversation at a time.
Visit us at NewOrleansTalkNetwork.com.
And you can see clips of us on our Instagram at _the Bridging the Gap podcast.
Sign up there.
You never know, you might be our next guest.
Because we need help bridging the gap.
Okay, don't let us do this thing alone.
Step Construction is here for you with a brand new offer. We now provide affordable storage sheds. Stop wasting your money on overpriced storage units and portable containers. Step Construction can provide you with a custom shed that will fit your budget and storage needs. So contact Step Construction today at 504-340-5809 for your own personal quote. Let us help you take the next step at Step Construction.
Are you looking for a hall to live stream your next event? Give us a call here at Bethesda Community Event Center, the only place on a golf course that can host and broadcast live your wedding reception, your baby shower, business seminar, and any other special event. Give us a call at 504-708-9454 for more details.
It's your girl, Spice Divas, the marketing diva, the host of Red Lip Talk podcast. Check me out every Monday at 1 p.m. on New Orleans Talk Network. Where do I begin? We have so many amazing guests, from politicians, gospel artists, barbers, beauticians, entrepreneurs, and so much more. If you want to be a guest on our podcast, definitely tune in so you can see what we're doing every Monday at 1 p.m. on New Orleans Talk Network. Mwah!
Still dealing with hurricane damage on your roof or damages to your home in general? Call Step Construction today at 504-340-5809 or visit stepconstruction.com. Step Construction is fully licensed and fully insured. We tell the insurance companies what they owe you. For a peace of mind, protect your most valuable asset. Let us help you take the next step at Step Construction.
Here at Jones Insurance, your full-service agency, let us take care of all your insurance needs. We provide homeowners insurance, flood, rental, commercial, auto, and life insurance. Don't let the unexpected tragedy destroy your family's future. Here at Jones Insurance, 7603 West Bank Expressway, Monroe, Louisiana, 772. Contact Lois at 504-348-1492.
Hi, I'm Sheriff Joe Lapinto, and you are watching the New Orleans Talk Network.
During times of family stress, if you need a church to hold your funeral services or a hall to hold your repast, you can contact us at Bethesda Community Event Center at 504-348-0132. We can accommodate all your repast and funeral needs, from a preacher to perform the services,
always have a physical copy of the transcript also. Welcome to Talk What You Know, Hard Talk Edition, right here in New Orleans Talk Network Studios. Thank you for being with us today. Today, we're going to be looking at an interesting topic relative to America. America just hit a number that should stop every conversation in this country. Not gas prices, not inflation, not interest rates. It's the number of children we're having. Because for the first time in modern American history, we are no longer replacing ourselves. And if you think that's just about family, you're already behind the story. What we're going to look at today is why this is happening. What's the cause? We're going to look at demographics. We're going to look at decisions. And we're going to answer the question, what is actually happening? Why is it happening? And what does it mean for the future of this country? It's so important for us. So let's start with what we know. And this is what we know. The United States fertility rate is around 1.7 children per woman. But to sustain the population, you need to have at least 2.1 children born per woman in this country. That means we're no longer replacing ourselves. Let me make this real for you. 15 years ago, America had about 4.3 million births a year. Today, it's about 3.6 million. That means nearly 700,000 fewer babies every single year. Now, that's not a trend. That's a structural change. Something has structurally shifted. Now, we're going to pause here, and I want to pause for a minute, and I want you to look at the generations, because this is where it gets a little bit uncomfortable. Mike, put that chart up. I want to show you what's happening. Okay, we got the generations here, and most of us know them, but let's just break them down. You got the baby boomers who were born between 1946 and 1964. You got Generation X that was born between 1965 and 1980. And you got the millennials, the most promising generation that was born between 1981 and 1996. And Generation Z, 1997 to 2012. What you see happening is a substantial generational shift. And kids no longer being the number one priority. That's right, kids and family no longer being the number one priority. So how is that impacting us? Well, you see it every day. And it's not an accident. Some people think it's just people don't want to have kids anymore, but that's not it. It's centered around what's in their best interest. We can roll. Because we didn't get here by accident. No, most things don't happen by osmosis. Excuse me. Now, the baby boomer generation has the largest birth rate in modern history. Yes, they were producers. You know, at the peak, they were having 3.7 children per woman having births. Now, today, it's sitting at about 1.6. So the question is, what's happened? And if you want to know that the transformation that happens, the baby boomers, man, they produce our modern structure. And every generation after them has fewer children. And today, we're below the replacement level. Now that's important because that's a decline. That's a collapse in generational reproductivity. And it's going to have a tremendous impact. And oftentimes we're focusing on so many things. But our conversation today, and we're going to take a look at it, and the reason why we're looking at it so closely, because they're not just saying no kids anymore. That's not what the dad is saying. Mike, we're going to pause and we're going to go to that survey. Let's go to the survey, because that's key. Because when they surveyed the millennials, Generation Z, and the Generation X, what they say is so key and important. Because what happens is that they're no longer focusing on family, kids. They're focusing primarily on themselves. And who can fault them? Because what's happening now is the cost of reproductivity has gotten so high that they're now questioning, is it worth it? And that's the key. And so the boomers, because they came after the World War II generation, the economic boom, the boomers had access to education, almost free education. The boomers had access to adequate housing. Most of them had access to adequate health care. But something has changed since the boomers. And what's happening now, the cost of housing is up, the cost to bear children is up, the cost of health care is up. All these things are off the chart. And so as we continue to roll, I want you to get a good understanding and appreciation for where we are. Because so many Americans, this is going to impact. And the math doesn't lie. It doesn't lie. Birth rates are falling. The fastest among young women, but rising slightly among women between 30 and 40. So what that tells you is that there's been a generational change. So people are not just having fewer children. No, they're having them late in life. That's key. So you have a cultural shift that manifests itself. We're moved from a family-first society, now don't believe if you choose not to individual-first society. Careers are now more important, financial stability, personal goals, all now rank above starting a family for many young people. So the question is not, do people want to have kids? The question is, can they afford to have kids with the rising costs associated with it? Now, I want you to, here at Hard Talk, and we're going to roll slow a minute, here at Hard Talk, we like to get diverse views, diverse opinions. So there's an author by the name of Melissa Kearney, and she wrote The Two-Parent Privilege. And she says some interesting things about the changes that have occurred. And some people like to look at this as a moral or ethical issue, but it's not. When you look at the economics of it, that is what's impacting these millennials, Generation X, and Generation Z. Economics. It's not about morals, it's not about birth control, it's not about delay, it's about economics. The burden of the economics that's falling on them have made them decide to, hey, have kids later. You know, I had my first child, I want to say at 28. I just wanted to get my career started. I wanted to get some things behind me. I wanted to get my education behind me. So, I guess I fall in the millennial. I'm not a millennial, I'm a boomer, but a millennial mindset. And so I had my second kid, I probably was in my mid-30s. So what happens is that I delayed everything for a career because I wanted to get established, I wanted to get things going. I just didn't want the responsibilities. That's a little bit self-centered, if you want to look at it, self-centered. But you know what? It ain't all bad being self-centered because it put me in a position when I did have kids, I was ready. I was ready to deal with the economics of it. I was ready to deal with the social aspect of it. I was ready to shut down and make the kid a priority, bottom line. So as we look at what's happening, the question is, when they're reaching the ages 25 to 35, because statistics also show that teenage birth out of wedlock is down almost 60%. So you see a tremendous shift manifesting itself. Younger people are having less children. People between the ages 25 and 40 are having more children. But the problem is the number of children they're choosing to have. And at 1.6, we can't replace society. So a lot of stuff you see that's going on, a lot of policy that's being driven is being driven by what the numbers show that's going to happen in America by year 2035. Because if the birth rate of America's remain the same, something is happening. Now, Mike, I want you to show something, and you know what? Let me say this. A lot of things President Trump says, I probably agree with them. I don't agree with the protocol and the methodology. So, Mike, I want you to play that clip. I'm out of sequence, but I want you to play that clip from President Trump where he describes something that's real. You see, because I tell you the truth, have I now become your enemy? And some things are truth in nature. And we learned this from Lyndon Johnson. You can't do butter. That means provide all the social programs and all the military capacity we need. Can't do both. Now, some may disagree with that, but I want you to hear what the president said. Now, what he's saying has a lot of validity to it. We may not like it. We may not like who's saying it, but what he's saying has some validity. Mike, play that clip right quick.
The United States can't take care of daycare. That has to be up to a state. We can't take care of daycare. We're a big country. We have 50 states. We have all these other people. We're fighting wars. We can't take care of daycare. You got to let a state take care of daycare, and they should pay for it, too. They should pay. They have to raise their taxes, but they should pay for it. And we could lower our taxes a little bit to them to make up for, but it's not possible for us to take care of daycare. Medicaid, Medicare, all these individual things, they can do it on a state basis. You can't do it on a federal. We have to take care of one thing, military protection. We have to guard the country. But all these little things, all these little scams that have taken place, you have to let states take care of them, Russell, and you have to do it. Linda McMahon, she's done such a great job. She's moved education back to the states. And you know what? You need congressional approval. I said, don't worry about it, just do it. She did it. They're largely back in the states. We have
what the president is saying is actually true. You can't do both. Now, you may disagree with him, but that's factually. History has demonstrated that and shown that. And so when you look at the choices that we have to make, that's maybe why people are deferring childbirth. And that's maybe why some are deciding not to produce children, because it's so key and so important. And once people were suggesting that it was because of recession and inflation. No, it's simply because the cost associated with raising children. Do you know it costs almost $18,000 a year to take care of one child? $18,000 a year to take care of one child. That's phenomenal. And when you look at the numbers, it has a great impact. Mike, thanks. Put that chart up. I want you to show something. This is a survey that was conducted by NBC News Data Desk Poll. Now, if you look at this, among females, having children and being married ranked 10 and 11 out of 12. 10 and 11 out of 12. Those are females saying, hey, look, having children and being married, might put the chart up there, I want them to be able to see it. Having children and being married is not as important as a job and career. A job and career was number one. Having enough money to do things you want to do. Achieving financial independence. All of those things was more important than having children and being married. Now, when you look at males, same thing. Bottoms, 7 and 8, being married, having children. So what has happened is that you've had a structural change in the way we think. And it's not based upon not wanting to, it's based on the fact that it costs so much. $300,000 is what it costs to raise a child from ages born to 18. $18,000 a year. That's a tremendous impact when you're only making $35,000 a year. So the question is, they're not changing because of moral reasons. They're changing because of economic reasons. So as I said, Melissa Kearney wrote this book called The Two-Parent Privilege. Interesting little book. And she focused everything around the economy because it's about demographics. It's about numbers. And that's why when we look at this and we analyze it, sometimes we're on the wrong train. It's strictly economics. What's governing these kids, the same thing that governed me, was economics. And that's where we are. So we want to look at this. Mike, play that first tape from the first one, America fertility rate. Play that one, the very first one, Mike.
U.S. fertility rate dropped to another record low in 2025. The lead of the story. The fertility rate in the United States has been trending down for decades, and new federal data shows that another drop last year brought the rate down to its lowest on record. Consider this, in the year 1800, the average American woman would bring 7 children into the world over the course of her lifetime. 7. Today, new federal data shows it has dropped to a record low of fewer than 1.6. Then there's something called the replacement rate. A population needs a fertility rate of 2.1 children per woman in order to meet that threshold. All fodder for conversation with Dr. Melissa Kearney, the Gilbert Schaefer Professor of Economics at the University of Notre Dame. She's the author of The Two-Parent Privilege, How Americans Stopped Getting Married and Started Falling Behind. She is a mother of 3, a wife, a daughter, a sister. Dr. Kearney, thanks for being here. My mom is one of 11, and I am responsible for 4, just so you know who you're dealing with.
Okay, good. So we like kids on this program. I get it.
We like kids on this program. By the way, I watched your speech at BYU after the book came out, which was, I guess, like shooting fish in the barrel. There was no way you were going to get heckled. There's no way you were going to get heckled at that crowd. I also read the Washington Post review about your quote-unquote tiresome book. So I think I'm well prepared. Let's begin with this.
Okay, good.
Are you here to make a moral or economic argument?
Well, obviously, I'm here to make the economics argument. Why we should care that fertility is down, and also sort of a non-normative, non-value-laden sort of examination of what I think is driving the decline in birth rates.
I asked that at the outset because I think people need to know there's a data argument at stake here. It's not as if it's a pro-family movement for the sake of, hey, kids are good, go have kids and so forth. But the data is suggestive of us headed for a cliff as a society if this picture doesn't change. Is that fair to say?
It is fair to say. And like speaking with family structure, talking about fertility, people get so dug in their ideological camps that they're not willing to look at the data with a clear-eyed perspective. And so there are people insisting that this isn't going to be a challenge, but it is. And there are people insisting that this is just people delaying childbearing and eventually fertility is going to catch up to what it used to be in this country. There is no data-based empirical reason to think that. And so being clear-eyed about this and setting our values and ideologies aside is really important to have the conversation we need to be having about what's happening in this country.
So I mentioned at the outset that the fertility rate is at about 1.6. The replacement rate is at about 2.1. Any other data points that Dr. Melissa Carney wants to lay out for us at the outset?
I mean, I think the right way to think about this, let's put this in some numbers maybe that people are easier to understand. The 1.6 is how many children a woman on average is expected to have over her lifetime. We could just look at births in this country. Last year, we had about 3.6 million births. 15 years ago, we were having about 4.3 per year. So just the number of births in this country are down. We're talking about millions of fewer children being born over a decade, which means millions of fewer workers about to enter the workforce. And here you're starting to see why this matters in an economic way.
Some people are hearing this, they're watching us, and they're saying, well, isn't this good news? I mean, the planet is overcrowded.
Yeah, exactly. This is a really terrible intellectual legacy of, I'll call it the Paul Ehrlich overpopulation movement that, came about in the late 1960s. We grew up learning about in school. We weren't going to be able to feed all the people on the planet. Of course, all of those dire predictions were wrong, horribly wrong. They led to horrible crimes against humanity. Overpopulation has not been a problem. Population of the globe has been growing while living standards have been improving for everybody. Now we're at a point where population is still growing in the globe, like in the US, but it soon will start decreasing because the rate of growth is rapidly shrinking. And the real worry is that depopulation will actually have a lot of negative consequences.
And Dr. Carney, another component of this is that we are living longer. And if we are living longer, then the societal safety net demands that we're able to care for the folks who are with us who are seniors. I'm looking at a headline from a couple of weeks ago. A proposal would cap Social Security at $100,000. Social Security is always in trouble, but never more so perhaps than now, so much so that people are talking about capping the benefits that those who paid into the system over a long time period could enjoy.
This is exactly right. We have this confluence of demographic headwinds where we've got fewer young people coming up into our economy, into our tax-paying system. And because we had the very large baby boom, the people born in the 40s and 50s who are now of retired age, that's a very large cohort. And they've got this increase in life expectancy, which is a good thing, but people are living much longer. So we have the population is really aging. The share of the population that's above age 65 has gone from, in the past 15 years, 11% to 18%. That sort of demographic is going to continue for the next couple of decades. So when you have an inverted population pyramid, so many old people and so few young people, the systems that we've set up where workers pay into a system to pay out benefits to the elderly, pay for their Medicare, that system is even less fiscally sustainable than sort of official numbers suggest.
Let's roll back now. So now you have a professor, an author, telling you that it's about economics. The demographic change is about economics, and it's a structural change. Because what happens is that the World War II generation started the population boom, and the boomers increased it. Now, after the boomers, you've had a steady increase down from 4.3 to 3.7 to now 1.6. So that has a tremendous impact. That impacts us structurally. And behind the scenes, you better believe that statisticians and analysts are looking at these demographic and economic changes, and they're asking themselves, how is it going to impact their workforce? How is it going to impact their think tank? And so there are tremendous consequences. So workforce impact, fewer children means fewer workers for tomorrow. Our system depends on young workers. Paying for the retirees, that has a tremendous impact. So what happens when you have fewer workers and more retirees? The system is strained. and it impacts us in ways we never thought. So the system that we work didn't break overnight. It slowly becomes unsustainable. And that's what you see. And that's what you heard President Trump talking about. A system that can't work based on economics. Less population growth means slower economic growth. That is happening in Europe and Asia, and it's happening all over the world. And how are we dealing with this problem? That's the question. How are we facing it? Policy changes? Mike, I want you to go to the governor, we're going to pause there and go to the governor of New Mexico. Now, there isn't a one solution fit all. Now, you heard President Trump say, hey, look, we got 50 states. There's no way in the world we can provide child care for everybody. We can't do both. You can't produce butter and you can't produce weapons. Can't do both. So all of it can't fall on the federal government. President Trump is right in what he said. Now, as I said earlier, I don't know what kind of policies he's going to implement to deal with it, but what he said is right. Some of this has to rest on individuals and the state. Now, the governor of New Mexico did something that no other governor has done. She decided, and you see a trend of women getting elected to office. If you paid attention, that's happening. I guess they say we messed things up so bad that maybe they should try themselves. So you look all over the country, women are being elected as congressmen, as governors, you name it, it's happening. And they're instituting policies that are impacting the things that impact women, that's going to eventually impact us. Because everything that impacts the mother, impacts the father, impacts the country, impacts the state, impacts the community. That's how it works. Now, you may not want it to be that way, but that's real. How the mother goes is how society goes. Yes. And that's why all these policies that can impact us are so important. And I want you to see what the governor of New Mexico did. 1 out of 50. This is the only place this exists in the United States. Mike, roll that film.
Today, New Mexico Governor Michelle Lujan Grisham signing the state's universal child care bill into law. It was one of the most high-profile moves the state has made in child care reform. Here's what the governor had to say today.
You'll never get it together. You'll never be able to just add kids. You don't have supply. The providers will never be able to catch up. Well, since November 1st, with very few, if any at all, hiccups, you have added 16,743 kiddos to a free child care system.
Well, the deadline for the governor to sign or veto bills is tomorrow. If she does not take action on a bill by then, it's pocket vetoed, meaning it's automatically rejected.
Now, you see there the governor instituted universal health care. Now, why is that important? Because the number one thing that impacts a family is child care. Number one thing. And the cost of child care has become astronomical. Just imagine if your average family making $35,000 a year or $50,000 a year, if 25% of your budget is going to child care off the top, is that an incentive for you to work? And so when we see parents saying, hey, look, I can't even put my child in a decent daycare and I can't afford it, that has a tremendous impact. So that's why Governor Lujan's proposal for state universal child care. Yes, sometimes the states have to pay for things. Everything cannot be thrust on the federal government. As I said, President Trump was right about that. And a lot of people were up in arms when he said it. But sometimes people will say things that make sense, and we got to look at them. And he's illustrating the problem. Now just imagine if every state took on the responsibility of universal child care like New Mexico did. You know what's going to happen? People are going to start reevaluating. Now, that's just one policy. It's not a fix-all. There are multiple things that need to be done. But the first thing that needs to be done is making sure that that child, when that parent has to go back to work, can be taken care of. Now, you can do it with tax credits. You can do it any way that your legislature decides to do it. But we can't sit back and say it's clearly on the federal government to do it. So let's be clear. This is global. This is not just an American issue. This is a global issue. And across the developing world, it's happening all over. Fertility rates are falling. More than half of the world's population is now below replacement levels. So it's not just a United States situation. It's a global situation. So this is not a political issue. This is a global demographic shift that's going to impact you and impact me. And it's just phenomenal. Mike, let's pause there for a minute. I want to show you Erin Ehrenberg, the CEO of Chambers of Mothers. When I saw this, I said, you know, this is important. Because what happens is that oftentimes we think there's nobody out there doing anything. But they have over 50 chapters in different states. And if you listen to it, it's not some left-wing radical or some right-wing radical saying, hey, we're not going to do this, we're not going to do that. These are people with common sense coming together to say these are issues that are impacting families. It impacts the country. It impacts the state. It impacts the local government. It impacts the quality of life. It's determined if our country is going to be able to sustain itself. Now, all this stuff you see about immigration, it's centered around fear. Yes. Because when the statisticians start to look at these numbers and look at how the demographic is going to change by 2035, you got a group of hardline people who don't want to see that shift. So let me just share this with you. If you don't want to see that shift, then maybe you should start thinking about policies that can avert that shift. So Erin Ehrenberg, the CEO of Chambers of Mothers, have some good suggestions. And if we implement these suggestions, we probably can get back to the World War II generation birth rate or the boomers' birth rate. Because if we continue on the same pattern that we is, because these millennials, they're not having children. Not in the numbers that you need. Generation X is not having children. And Lord, poor Generation Z, they don't want them at all. But it's not all about moral, it's about economic and demographics. When that amount of people start to defer childbirth, there's not a replacement organ. Mike, play Ms. Chambers, what's failing, causing the birth fail rate in the U.S. economy. Let's play that one. Let's listen to it. Let's listen to what she has to say, because she says some important things. Play it, Mike.
Moms that are part of the heartbeat of Chamber of Mothers who are advocating for the change that we advocate for. They are certainly business owners, they are entrepreneurs, they are concerned about what this means for business owners, right? So if we have declining birth rates, that means that we have an aging class of consumers, which can often lead to less innovation. It means that we have a strain on the labor force, and all of that's important. But when I zoom out as the CEO of Chamber of Mothers, somebody that got into this work as an attorney, looking at what is really holding women back, period, once they become mothers, our concerns are the support or lack thereof that we get from both our national and state government right now. And when you look at declining birth rates, what does that mean for mothers individually? Why are they choosing to have fewer babies? I mean, a stat I read said that it's down 710,000 births from our peak year in 2007. What's really going on? Well, what we know is that this is a lagging indicator of what mothers are experiencing and shouting from the rooftops. We advocate for federal paid family and medical leave, increased investment in childcare from a federal level, meaning making childcare more affordable for all Americans, and improve maternal health outcomes. And so if you look at a mother and she's facing down her choices you look at a woman and she's facing down her choices as to whether she should have a baby, she's looking at, okay, where is she in her career? What will happen to her career? What will happen to her income once she has a baby? And those stats are not on her side. We all know the motherhood penalty is the biggest hit that a woman takes in her career, and moms are looking at that factor. They're also looking at the fact that childcare is their number one biggest expense. Across the country, that's the case in most states. People are spending just enormous amounts on childcare, and there's no guaranteed paid family medical leave. And so you're looking at the equation, and you're also looking at, we have an increasing maternal mortality rate. So there are a lot of moms who are frankly afraid to go into childbirth, particularly if they live in what's considered a healthcare desert, where they can't get the care that they need in a timely way and feel assured that the care is going to be responsive to what they're saying and what their needs are. So when you look at it, a woman who is thinking about becoming a mother for the first time or thinking about having an additional child, she's looking at, what will this do to my career goals? What do I feel comfortable going into this in terms of my survival and my thriving and my health? And she's also looking at, can I afford it, right? And so, we have moms in our community saying things to us like, well, we were paying $40,000 a year for childcare, but then when my partner lost his job, it went from a matter of that being a ridiculous number to that being an absolutely unaffordable, unsustainable number. And so they're looking at which one of us falls out of the workforce. Really difficult questions that families are facing. And so what we think about a lot at Chamber of Mothers when we think about declining birth rates and pronatalism is, what do mothers really need? What have mothers been saying that they need to thrive, right? Because we want moms, we want women to have the amount of children that they want to have, right? And we know that they feel they're held back by not being supported by the infrastructure in this country.
What exactly does Chamber of Mothers do?
Zooming out, what are we? Chamber of Mothers is an organization. We are now the largest nonprofit that advocates for mothers' rights and does it in a disciplined, bipartisan way. So we work across the political spectrum. We bring in moms who have a variety of different political beliefs and ways of voting. We meet with members of Congress all across the political spectrum. We meet with lawmakers across the states, across the political spectrum, and we advocate for three things: paid family medical leave, affordable childcare, and improved investment in maternal health. Why do we advocate for those three things? Two reasons. Number one, over 80% of voters, again, Democrat, Republican, Independent, all agree that we need federal investment in all three of those: paid leave, childcare, and maternal health. So there is agreement, there's alignment among mothers that we need this. And there are 85 million mothers in this country with 15 trillion annual spending power, controlling 84% of household spending decisions. So when you look at, why do we not have these basic supports that many countries across the world provide to mothers and families? Well, we need to make sure that we take that alignment we have and we let our lawmakers know that we're holding them accountable. So that's what we're doing. We are in DC between 6 and 8 times a year. We have chapters across the country who are successfully advocating for change in these areas. And the other reason we landed on those three advocacy pillars are, these are the places where women are not thriving. Women go through life feeling generally autonomous, able to go after what they want to go after. We're seeing more women become doctors and lawyers, but then they become mothers, and that's a big stumbling block and hurdle, and that should not be. And so we look at this question from the standpoint of, what infrastructure can our government be providing to address this issue?
When we talk about the economic cost of a declining birth rate, you mentioned consumer spending power, both in terms of mothers who exist currently in the U.S., but the potential consumers being born or here not born. Have you put a number on it? Is there a X percent, or excuse me, X billion-dollar effect of this decline that the CDC just reported?
Well, we know that businesses lose $12.7 billion annually when mothers are looking for childcare and scrambling for childcare. So that's the number that we go back to. We know that in order to address this issue, we need to look at what is the economic pain of mothers not having the support that they have, because we need to make that argument in a lot of rooms. That's a lens that a lot of lawmakers are more concerned about than just the values, just doing the right thing by mothers and families.
You've outlined a lot of the factors that I think do go into the birth rate decline, and it is, in my professional opinion, less surprising to see these CDC numbers when you consider the lack of paid family leave, the cost of childcare, the rising motherhood mortality rate. Within the CDC report, though, I want to talk about something that feels like more of a positive development. There are, of course, folks who say this is bad, but the CDC report makes very clear that there's been a large decline in the number of teen births. The fertility rate for teenagers in 2025 was 11.7 births per 1,000 women, down 7% year over year, down 72% since 2007. Is this a good thing?
Well, I would imagine that a teen mother would need even more support, right? This is someone who's trying to finish her education and is at the very beginning of the goals that she has to contribute to the world around her. And so we know that, you know, a mother who's unsupported across the financial and economic and racial spectrum, you know, there are a lot of pressures that moms have really across demographics. And we look often at a single Black mom in the US, right? This is a person who is going to have it harder than most any other mother based on maternal mortality, based on where we are with the race gap in addition to the gender gap. And so we look at solving these problems for her. When you take teen motherhood into that and you look at the lack of support and just what that person needs to thrive, certainly without the infrastructure helping and supporting and holding up families, it's going to be that much harder. So I would take that as a good thing. We don't have infrastructure for moms who have a lot of education, a lot of means. These are moms who are still really struggling. And, you know, I came to this work myself after having our first baby, and I was already a lawyer. I was earning well. I was married to somebody who was also a professional. He's a veterinarian. He was earning well. We lived in Los Angeles. So theoretically, we had everything we needed to make this an easy go. And I had a lot of trouble. I had very limited support after I came home from the hospital. There were things happening to my body that I didn't understand, and my doctor was dismissive. And, you know, you don't have a postpartum visit and really until 6 weeks postpartum, and you're seeing a pediatrician within a day in many cases. And so I just remember feeling, wow, if I'm 33 years old and I have this education and I have earnings and I'm really struggling, I don't know what to do, and I'm finding myself kind of terrified about how I can go back to work feeling this way and not sleeping through the night and trying to figure out feeding schedules. I was so overwhelmed. I remember crying in my car on the way to work, and I'm somebody, you know, who had it really all going for me. It was really difficult. And that was the moment that I said to myself, I am going to find a way to devote the rest of my career to making this easy for other mothers. Truly. And that's how Chamber of Mothers.
Now that's significant. What Ms. Ehrenberg, CEO of the Chambers of Mothers, said was so key. She had the infrastructure in place. She did almost the same thing that we did, waited till our careers were started and got some student loans behind us and some bills behind us and purchased the first home. So we thought we had everything in place. And I remember I would come home sometime and I thought everything was great. And this girl had been crying all day. And it didn't make sense. Because I thought we had the infrastructure in place. That's why organizations like Chambers of Mother matter, because you have people who live this on a daily basis. And she says something that's key. We put infrastructures in place for everything. That's all you hear, infrastructure, infrastructure. Why isn't there infrastructure in place to deal with childbirth, to deal with mother care, to deal with what mothers go through? I'm telling you, you come home, you think everything's great, and your partner's been crying all day. Why? What you crying about? She says her doctor was dismissive. Oftentimes, doctors will dismiss things that women are going through because they don't fully understand it. And that's why that infrastructure is so important. So she laid out a plan, and I think that the states and governments and parents and people should look at. She said paid family leave. Now, I couldn't take off and stay at home. Wife couldn't really take off and stay at home. So when you go through this birth protocol, we should have institutional paid family leave for at least 6 months. It took me 6 to 8 months to adjust to that child's birth. Yes, 6 to 8 months. Now just imagine if one of those parents had paid parental leave. That's one of the things that they advocate for. The second thing she said, affordable child care. If it costs you 1 week's salary and a half to keep that child in daycare, chances are very slim you're going to keep that child in daycare. Because it doesn't make economic sense. See, this is an economic argument. It's not a moral or social or left or right. It's about economics and demographics, what's best. So if we put an infrastructure in place, we can go back to 3.7 births, per woman, instead of the 1.6 we're at today. And the third thing she said was improve maternal care. There have been so many ladies who have come to me and say, hey, my doctor don't listen to me, that my doctor don't understand me. And they just tell me, oh, you're gonna get over it. Now, you know what? They don't get over it. It took my wife almost 15 months to get to back where she was before she had that child. 15 months. So if there's no maternal care available that deals with the issues that impact them, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a scientist, but ladies go through all sort of hormonal changes, all sort of physical changes, all sort of psychological changes, all sort of environmental changes. All these things are impacting them simultaneously, and there's no state or federal infrastructure in place to deal with it. There's no local government infrastructure in place to deal with it. So if we want to get back to the World War II generation and the boomer generation childbirth rate of 3.7 per family, hey, there's something we can do about it. Now the question is, do we want to address it, or do we want to make boogeyman, we want to make immigration the problem? But you know what? At 1.6 birth per family, if you don't have some integration, you're going to die. You're going to collapse. Your whole system is going to collapse. So maybe we should get around a round table and start talking about paid family leave, affordable child care, and improved maternal care. Those are the three elements. And we were fortunate enough, my mother-in-law, when the baby got about 8 months, could take care of the baby. But so many families now are living in different parts of the country. There's no maternal family anymore. See, in the baby boom, you had maternal families. I can tell you, my mom had 13, 14 kids, 11 of us sustained. Her brothers, her sisters, my aunties, my uncles, they all were within shouting range. They would come and get the kids and relieve my mom and help comb the hair and feed the kids. As a matter of fact, one of my mom's sisters took me and I stayed with her for a long period of time. But we don't have that structure anymore because people are they move all over the country for opportunities. So there's no family structure anymore. So in the absence of that, what should we do? Chase red herrings, chase immigration, blame other people for the problem? No. We have ironclad solutions, and the governor of New Mexico started with one. And if we just start with one, can make all the difference. The governor of New Mexico instituted affordable child care. Think about that. In 50 states, one state has instituted affordable child care for parents, but that's something that parents doesn't have to wonder about. So one leg we see can be done. And that's so key and that's so important. Because you know why? Deferring childbirth, you may not believe this, and I didn't believe it when I was first looking it up, has become an industry. It has become an industry to defer childbirth. So people are having births at later ages, which deals with infertility, which deals with all kind of methodologies to have children. So a whole industry has been birthed. That's not only it, and they're strong. Their lobbyists are strong. It's a multi-billion-dollar industry. So first they tell you on one hand, defer childbirth till you get it together. And then a whole industry is created that reinforces that, a multi-billion-dollar industry. Mike, play that clip, how America killed its own birth rate. Play that clip. I want people to see. This is a whole industry. This is not an accident. This is, you know, I used to say this when I was a kid. You know, you say crazy things when you're a teenager or you're in high school or whatever. You say crazy things. When I used to, in college, I used to say life is a succession of accidents. This sound, hold on a minute, Mike. This sound great. This sound phenomenal. But as I matured and grew, I see how ignorant it is. Life is a succession of accidents. And where those accidents occur determines where you go in life. I want you to see the research that this young man did that showed you that it ain't no accident. This deferring of childbirth to old age has created a whole industry where lobbyists spend billions and billions of dollars to deal with it. Mike, play the clip right quick. You got it?
About something we had no idea that even existed. Remember our friends who recommended that we freeze eggs? Well, turns out they didn't just freeze them. They actually use IVF for a very specific reason. They use a company called Nucleus Genomics, which offers an IVF add-on for, you know, a cheap $30,000. And how it works is they scan the DNA of both parents plus up to 20 embryos across over 2,000 traits, everything from eye color and intelligence to disorders like depression and bipolar, and then you basically get a menu where you can sort, compare, and choose which baby that you want. And at first too, Sophia and I had 100% sounded like eugenics and human engineering, but once our friends showed us their results and explained how they were able to screen out a genetic disorder that runs in their family, it stopped sounding so dystopian and started sounding like, why wouldn't we do this if we could? So screw it, we dropped the $30,000 and we decided to make the super baby of our dreams. So since she's Brazilian and I'm Japanese, we had a plan for this super baby. We're gonna name it Lamarcus de Sandro Kimura, who will have my eye shape, Sophia's eye color, my height and my intelligence, of course, her nose, and both of our ADHD to become the most racially ambiguous super baby that the world has ever seen. So of course I'm taking the piss here in this theoretical example, but it's not just a joke. Because in reality, this industry is growing rapidly because they made it so appealing that now a growing number of couples who could get pregnant naturally are choosing IVF specifically to be able to access the screening. So you can see now how every step of the pregnancy is increasingly getting monetized through this illusion of choice. But with that said, Sophia's pregnant, but now we need to actually have the baby. Well, and this is where it really starts getting a bit darker, because a vaginal delivery with pre and postnatal care in the US costs around $15,000, but for a C-section that jumps to $30,000. But that's actually not even the point here. What I found is that 1 in 3 US births today are C-sections, even though the World Health Organization says that the ideal range should be around 10 to 15%. So why is this happening? Well, I'm sure you could guess, but it's because C-sections make nearly double a vaginal delivery. But not only that, it takes about 45 minutes compared to a vaginal birth that can sometimes take hours or days. And it's not just some conspiracy I'm spouting here. A national study found that hospitals with higher profits per C-section were significantly more likely, like by a 5-fold difference, to perform them regardless of the mother's risk level. And guess which kind of hospital we ended up at? But that's fine as long as Sophia's gonna be safe, right? Well, turns out even though we pay more than anywhere, US has the worst maternal mortality rate of any developed country, and over 80% of those deaths were preventable. But let's be grateful and thank God because the baby's here. But Sophia better get her ass back to work because the US is the only developed nation on earth with 0 guaranteed paid maternity leave, whereas every other comparable country offers at least 14 weeks. But it's not because we're all raging workaholics with no family values, well, kind of. But the thing is, 82% of Americans want this paid maternity leave, so why don't we have it? Well, like I said earlier, it's a lot more beneficial for companies to pay for egg freezing than keep Sophia at her job. Well, also a big part of it is lobbying, because the formula milk industry has spent millions lobbying against paid maternity leave. And why they lobby against it is because paid leave makes breastfeeding possible, and breastfeeding cuts into their $55 billion global business. So now you can start seeing the systems, but anyways, Sophia goes back to work, and now childcare starts, which on average will cost $18,000 a year. But that amount is just what shows up on the bill, because what doesn't show up is what Sophia loses by going back. And I know what some of you guys are thinking, this gender pay gap that's been debated to death, and it's fair because it's been largely debunked when you control for hours worked, job type, and experience, but there's one place where it absolutely shows up, and it's motherhood. Columbia University found that working women see their incomes cut in half after having children, and it's because the second you become a mom, you're the one that's expected to leave early, miss work when the child is sick, pass on the promotion, and employers price that in. Whereas for dads, not only is there no penalty, but fathers actually earn a lot more after having kids. In fact, as much as 25% more than men without children. So to the 85% of my audience that are men, this is literally the one money-making cheat code y'all aren't using because your boss will think that you're more responsible and give you a raise. So the gender pay gap can be debated, but what can't be debated is the parenthood penalty.
Now, that's factual. $18,000 a year for childcare, $100,000+ for childbirth. All of this is tied to women having children later, and instead of going through natural birth because their body changes, they have to have C-sections. So you see the profit in it. It's profitable to defer childbirth. It has a tremendous impact. You know, it's profitable not to provide affordable child care because there's profit in it. Now the question is, are the profiteers going to continue to do what they do and allow the birth rate to stay at 1.6 when it has to be at least 3.6 to reproduce? And how do you deal with it? That's the fundamental question. That's why I said earlier, this is not a political issue. This is about economic and demographics and the survival of this country as a whole. It's not a political issue. We're not ready yet. And the key to it is that when politicians say something that makes sense, it makes sense. And I told you earlier, President Trump touched on something that they mocked and they ridiculed and they talked about, but he was right. And I want us to close with what he said, and I want you to understand it because he laid out what's real. We can't do both. Mike, play that clip again.
States can't take care of daycare. That has to be up to a state. We can't take care of daycare. We're a big country. We have 50 states. We have all these other people. We're fighting wars. We can't take care of daycare. You got to let a state take care of daycare, and they should pay for it, too. They should pay. They have to raise their taxes, but they should pay for it. And we could lower our taxes a little bit to them to make up, but it's not possible for us to take care of daycare. Medicaid, Medicare, all these individual things, they can do it on a state basis. You can't do it on a federal. We have to take care of one thing, military protection. We have to guard the country. But all these little things, all these little scams that have taken place, you have to You have to let states take care of them, Russell, and you have to do it. Linda McMahon, she's done such a great job.
We can come back. Now, what he's saying is factual in nature. You may not agree with him, you may not like him, but what he's saying is factual in nature. And sometimes, Kenzie, is a little bit uncomfortable. Sometimes the truth is uncomfortable. But there's no single solution. It's not just tax credits. It's not only policy initiatives. It's more than that. And we have to look at it carefully. And it's not a cultural argument. No, it's about where we are. Can we fix a multi-level problem? That's the question. And it's not a single solution. It's not a one policy fit all. No, it's not. It's not a one policy fits all. And this is about economics. It's about culture. It's about biology. It's about lifestyle. You see, all these things are colliding at the same time, and nobody's looking at it. So the question is not why we aren't having more children. That's not the question. The real question centers around what can society do? What kind of society are we going to build? Are we going to have fewer people? Are we going to have generational changes that impact us? That's the key. And it's so important because we're not paying attention to it. We're getting caught in the nuances and the nonsense. We're not looking at it. And the question for you today is what kind of society you want to have. This has been Talk What You Know Hard Talk Edition. And I'm Reverend Dr. Laura Jones, Donald R. Jones. And I want you to stay informed, stay vigilant, and remember, a voteless people is a hopeless people. Look forward to being with you on next time with Talk What You Know, Hard Talk Edition, right here in the New Orleans Talk Network studios. We want to remind you, if this has been an informative program to you, we encourage you to share it with a friend, like it, and comment. Look forward to being with you next time on Hard Talk, Talk What You Know, Hard Talk Edition.
Trying to hold back this feeling for so long. And if you feel like I feel, baby.
Now New Orleans has a choice. Download the New Orleans Talk Network app for your mobile device or listen at www.neworleanstalknetwork.com.
Your week doesn't start on Monday morning. It starts with the truth. Join me, Reverend Dr. Donald R. Jones, on Talk What You Know, Hard Talk Edition, Mondays at 11 a.m. on the New Orleans Talk Network. We're cutting through the noise, the spin, and excuses, bringing you a healthy dose of reality to start your week right. Hard conversations, real facts, no scapegoating.